East Coast of the United States. I have no idea what time it is down and under, but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hello and welcome to Shiny Side Out with...
Hopefully it's me, Dave.
and myself, Mecky. We are broadcasting live from the Sydney studios in Australia. That's the Antipodes, down under. That's right, the land of the burnt sun. Join us in the freedomslips.com chat room. We're actually in there right now, and it's full, Dave. There's lots of people there. That's awesome. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and or Twitter. We don't have a Snapchat presence, if that's possible, but there are other media that are coming up, and we'll have a presence on there as well as soon as we can. Get our show notes and all of the links we share with the chat room at shinysideout.net. That's us.com was gone.net. Shinysideout.net, one word. Get connected to Revolution Radio another way, because it's on air, online, and on your smart device. On the line. It's on the line all the time. Get connected, right? If you live in Kentucky, tune in on FM, find WZZR 101.3. Hello, Thomas Mackey. How are you? Just a shout out to the chat room there. 101.3 WZZR. Use one of these apps to listen as well. There's tunein.com, Web Radio Central, Receiver mobile app, Freedom Slips mobile, of course, TalkStream Live, I'm hooked into that right now, StreamFinder.com, InternetRadio.com, Radio Tuner, Radio Ways, and Radioline.co. See if you can do the R like I can do the R. And then, of course, there's our very own Shiny Side Out app. Okay, well, not app, Shiny Side Out app. Everything should be something, right? At home, you can listen on a Grace tabletop digital radio, if you have one. And driving around, you can listen in a General Motors vehicle via a receiver-enabled radio. Now, having said that before, and I'll say it again, as this is taking off, this technology, the digital transmissions, there will be lots of vehicles with digital radios, and you can listen to us on that all the time. It's awesome. In fact, Dave had a coffee recently at his work, and the barista who came around in a truck played our show on the air. It was probably a YouTube or repeat or whatever. It wasn't live, I can tell you that. Dave was at work. But that's awesome. Thank you very much, sir, for playing our show and playing freedomslips.com radio. Much, much appreciated. So that's a shout out to you, Dave. We'll mention your business in a second, because I think that's awesome. Now, these are all revolutions in radio. Of course they are. All right. The old days, you had a crystal receiver set. I built one of those.
So did I.
When I was young. And my grandfather gave me a vacuum tube radio. I still have it. It still works. It's actually better than any of the radios I have, right? You built one as well, right, Dave?
I sure did. And I got a funny story with that, but keep going. Keep rolling.
Cool. Excellent. I'm rolling, baby. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I've got a little Blaupunkt, I think it is. It's Blaupunkt radio, vacuum tube tuning, and it's now probably, I want to say 70, maybe 80 years old. So yeah, it still works like a charm. Now, freedomslips.com is not only a radio station. It is a radio station, but it's so much more. In fact, it's emblematic of the future we are rapidly approaching, in fact, living in. It's a central hub for all of your information. The links are at the bottom of the homepage. Couldn't be easier. Really couldn't be. It's a great setup. Easy to navigate site. You can buy a CD of your favorite shows. 2014 season, I think 2015 probably soon as well, if not already. That's $34.95 for the US, if it's in the US, right? US dollars. Or $39.95 if it's outside the US. That's including postage and handling, I'd imagine. Or you can donate. And let me say something about that quickly. We are a listener-funded radio station. And by we, I mean freedomslips.com, all the hosts, from Nighthawk down, don't get paid for any of this. I think there's just enough money in the kitty every month to keep the servers running, which is brilliant. This month is a bit slow, I think, but I'm sure we're going to get there. But yeah, essentially it's you guys out there in Listenerland. You're the ones that keep us broadcasting, because electricity ain't free yet. It's probably free for some, not free for us, not quite. And then other things cost money as well, links and data and all these wonderful things. Plus, hardware. Sometimes you got to repair. You got to put new things into the servers, like memory and things like that. Anywho, so this is your chance to participate in the information revolution. We're living in a connected age, but no longer are we just consumers. For the longest time we were, and for the longest time all the media did, and by media I mean television, radio, newspapers, all those things. All they did was have, create an audience. That was the product they had. They created an audience, and then they, stream ads and try to sell you stuff, and all those wonderful things, product placements, blah blah blah. You still get it. Okay, you are the product, guys. You, as listenership, you're the product. Now, not so here. We have no corporate sponsorship. We're not any ad that you will hear is related to the station. Or things that we do, we're not trying to sell any soft drinks or, crisps or God knows what. So none of that. So you are part of that revolution. Enable yourself. Become enfranchised, right? Not disenfranchised, but enfranchised. Be part of the information avalanche, as it is known by me. Now, I just coined that phrase. You were here. It's a serious term. Serious and severe. Severious. Now, it is really important that you understand that your money makes the station tick. If the listenership wasn't supporting us, then we wouldn't exist. Okay, enough about that. The number to call in, if you are in the United States of America, United States, I don't know how much longer they're going to be united, is 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902. Or you can also dial in via Skype, listen in via Skype, and that's simply by adding Freedom Screen. I hope my accent is not screwing it up for you guys. One word, freedom and then screen. Now, Solaris, I'm sure had a great show. I didn't listen to it because I just got back from Kiama. In case you're wondering, that's 2 hours south of Sydney. 2 hours south of Sydney, Kiama. Beautiful spot. If you ever get to go there, you should. And try the pies and the fish and chips and just enjoy the beach. It was really great. Unfortunately, today we had an invasion of blue bottles. Blue bottles are a type of jellyfish that sting, and it burns like acid. It's not good. The goggles, they do nothing. And I picked up a few because my kids were on the beach walking around. You know what I'm talking about, right? So there was. But yesterday there weren't any. It was pretty cool. And like I said, though, it's unusual to see blue bottles that far south, but nonetheless, there they were. Now let's get back to Solaris. She had a great show, I hope.
Yeah, she did. She had John Savage on, and they were talking about
really?
paranormal investigation. John Savage, then no less.
Nice.
I can hear a drink with ice cubes in it. Mecky's having a refreshing beverage. So Mecky, I'd like to tackle some of those things you've mentioned already. Number one, thank you, Marvin from Espresso. He's my barista when he visits the factory that I work at. I work at a factory, and he visits the factory once a day, and his coffees are fantastic. And thank you very much. And I, to my surprise, when I went to get my coffee, and he knows what you want. You don't have to do anything. That's a good barista. He knows what you want, and we usually have a quick chat while he's making it. And tremendous fellow. And I couldn't believe it. He had a screen there playing our archive, and he kept it there for his morning rounds. Good on him. And he was thinking of helping us even further, Mecky, and having like an actual LCD screen, like a big screen, playing it with speakers and everything. So, anything, any kind of help that we can get from anyone, thank you very much. That's awesome. Spreading the word is also really good, and we appreciate that a lot. And thank you once again, Marvin from Espresso Coffee, where you always get a good coffee. There's a jingle for you. So the next thing, Kiama is a lovely place, isn't it, Mecky?
It is.
I've been there many a time. I've spent a summer down there as well. When I was going to school, just after we left school, we had our own cars and we drove down there. It was a tremendous thing. We camped. There's a nice camping ground there right near it, and there's two different things. I mean, you've got like a back beach. Sorry, you have it's Freudian slip, because you don't want to go. If you're surfing, you don't want to go to the back beach because there's no surf there. You want to go to the front beach. The beach is good, and there's also a couple of things. There's a little fishing village there, and the blowhole where there's a natural cavity in the rock where if the swell is at a particular direction coming from the southeast, and it enters through the wave goes through into the blowhole, then it spurts up into the air like a geyser, but it's a tidal wave action geyser. It's very, very cool. I'm not condoning this, but I have swum in it, in the blowhole, which is apparently extremely dangerous, and I don't recommend anyone else do it. So do not do that. It's bad. Mekki, how has your week been this week?
I've been crazy busy with work, which is sad but true, and it was just I didn't even know what the weather was like. And, you make your plan for your day, and then the day comes around, and then all of a sudden something shifts, and everything you had planned for that particular day is gone completely and utterly destroyed by whatever catastrophe has just visited your place of work. And I had a few things to sort out, a few issues, but other than that, it's all well. Family's well. I hope the same goes with you, my friend.
Yeah. I know that every day I have a checklist of things that I'm supposed to achieve because I'm setting my own goals for the day, and none of my goals have any priority over the business's goals. The business has its own goals, and I have to achieve all of those, plus attend to mine. And when I used to do 18 or 16 hours a day, I would ensure they all got done. But now, live and work smarter, and that's you do all of the high priority work, you sub out the low priority work or some of the high, and you block your time out. Block out your calendar so that you can achieve some of the things you need to do. Don't struggle. Work shouldn't be a struggle. I know it's never easy, but do the best you can. Make sure you're swimming, not drowning, and that's good mental health right there.
That's right.
Yeah, because if you have to continue to thrash around and just to keep your head above water, then you're either not doing your job correctly, there are too many expectations on you and you're not up managing those, and you're not spreading the workload. Because if you stare around your office and there's people not doing anything, you need to get them working. All right. If you're drowning and they're not doing anything, you need to get them work. All right, that's as simple as that. Yep. Yeah. Look, outside of that, I don't know why, Mekki, don't hate me for this, but Pizzagate. Have you heard of Pizzagate?
I have not heard of Pizzagate. What is Pizzagate?
Oh, well, I don't want to explain the details too deeply here.
Right.
Until I know all about it and whether or not it's real or not.
Right.
Because Pizzagate is supposed to be several pizza outlets and code words and pedestal emails and the Clintons and you name it. It implicates tons of people in in a ring. Let's say a P ring, if you get my gist.
Yes.
And there's an abuse ring of people in a particular age bracket. I don't want to say the words.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I haven't seen anything on that. Okay.
All right. Well, the term pizza means girl and hot dog means boy, apparently. Okay. I'm not going any further. And,
I understand.
And it's chilling. I don't care if it's real or not. And I don't care whether there's tunnels. I don't care at the moment. I'm just looking at all the information and trying to make my own judgment on it. I think if it's real at all, that'll be just like what happened in England. They've had 10,000 or something people all implicated in something very similar. These kinds of things are bubbling to the surface now, or people are being maybe less reluctant less.
Canadian.
Yeah, that's right.
The Canadian thing, you mean, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that happened. Yeah. No, that was no one is disputing that, right? Clearly, that's what happened.
Exactly.
Shocking.
And in England, there was a very similar thing with cupboards through back. A door in the back of a cupboard and basements and all sorts of things. And well, it may very well be the tip of the iceberg, or something that's equally hideous. There might be an occult thing going on, not just a community of like-minded individuals participating in something illegal. It might be bigger than that.
Right.
A community of like-minded individuals could be just, playing and betting poker, having poker nights, if it's illegal in your state, But I don't believe any of that is as harmless as that. And look, we'll get to the bottom of it. Whether it's just fake news, I don't know. Because the term fake news now, that's been bandied about since the end of the Trump campaign and his win, has, when retrospectively observed of the mainstream media, how much of their stuff is fake. Oh my God, they're the kings of fake news. And they don't like it when people who aren't news organizations make fake news. Is that right? What were they complaining about? That's what I'm finding really difficult to understand and comprehend, is this whole term fake news. Well, why don't you look at them first? The news agencies putting news out that isn't real. I watched something really, really good. The John Moore, Mekhi. I watched a John Moore presentation.
I like John Moore.
Yeah.
I like John Moore.
Yeah.
He's funny.
Are we talking about the same John Moore?
I think we may.
Ex-US military man. Right. I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen his stand-up, but...
No, that's stand-up. But okay, keep going.
I know, Mekhi. He's actually, while he's as dry as one of my old boss's humour, and cutting as, well, a couple of really good Australian people, but I'll leave it like that. He's dry and cutting, but I think he's fun. I think he's funny too. I think I see your point of view. However, watching the John Moore video and seeing what he says they know, and this is the tie-in is fake news. How fake news is always presented to us, and if you just look up the Bay of Tonkin to find out what black flags or false flags are all about, Mekhi and I we did a show on this, right?
That's right.
Yep. Fake news has been around. It's been around. It's still around. And it drives everything we do.
Right.
Mekhi, you'll like this. I had a conversation last night with an 18-year-old boy. He's a boy. I can't say... News might call him a man. I have to say that he was more switched on than I expected him to have been.
Okay, that's good.
I have to say his head is screwed on correctly. He refuses to make a judgment call. He's a little different to his school friends, but he says he refuses to make a judgment call based on what the media says. He'll do his own research.
Very good.
He does his own research and comes to his own conclusions based on everything that he can find. And I'm not saying that he only watches YouTube videos or anything. I mean, I gave him the example of the weapons buyback scheme, where we looked up the Bureau of Statistics fatalities and the causes of, and we found, you and I found, Mekhi, that the gun deaths due to guns dropped, but deaths due to other, like homicides due to other weapons, increased, but increased higher.
Yeah.
Because people went, oh, there's no gun. I've got a knife. Hey, everyone's got knives. Awesome. We're not without a knife, right? So they started.
No, it was pretty bad. In fact, arson was pretty bad as well in Australia.
So we saw a distinct rise in the total homicides after guns were removed. but the gun homicides went down, but it went down globally. And he goes, really? And I said, well, have a look at all the information's out there on the net. It's all there in the government agencies, and they only tell you one little part of it. They don't tell you the other part. And they'll get a trumpet and A-frame and go out there and sing there and dance their own accomplishments. But it's a one-sided argument based on very little facts, if any. And he said, oh, I know. And he started to cite a whole bunch of other things. And I went, oh, good on you, buddy. I said, how many people in your class do the same thing? And he goes, oh, there's a few of us. He said, but not all. He said, mostly people just take in what the mainstream says. This is an 18-year-old, Mechie. I thought, good on you. Good on you for thinking like this.
Well, this generation that's growing up now, and I'd say the 14 to 21-year-olds, millennials, whatever, they're uniquely enabled to take advantage of information and the information universe we live in. In a way, you and I never were. Like we like I said last time, I think we had to go to the library, look at microfiche. I don't know if you remember microfiche. If you do, you're too old. Essentially, those guys. So while it's good in one sense, it's also tough in another, because of course there's an information overload. And then, you mentioned fake news earlier. Of course, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it comes from all different sources. People do it to get hits. Like, the more outrageous your claims, or the more crazy something sounds, or whatever it might be, or controversial, the more likely people are to click through to your site. And you want page count, that's what you want. Click counts, right? You want click, that's what you want.
And
views.
It's called clickbait.
Yeah, and then you can sell that, right? And all of a sudden you've got an audience, like TV used to have, or still does, I guess. But so it is a very good situation. Now, of course, you have to be smart about it, and I'm sure that your young friend probably is. But how do you separate the chaff from the
wheat?
Wheat. Mm-hmm. That's tough. It's tough. It's tough for me. It's tough for you. And we've been around in this game for a long time now. Sometimes we get blindsided. We don't know, what's what, and sometimes we might say something that isn't quite correct. But over time, though, patterns emerge, and those kids now have the unique opportunity to become pattern masters. Right? If you get into it while you're young, and you can see the patterns, you understand the patterns, you will spot the red herring, you will spot the fake bits. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there will be other things linked to it, and there will be reasons why certain things are presented in a certain way. So I'm hopeful. This is great. This is awesome that you had this conversation, my friend. This is a very crucial time. It is. Well, people have been saying this for a long time now, but it is. I mean, you can't say a year is crucial or a week is crucial. This is a period of time we're living in right now, right? We have never seen information or advancements come about as quickly as they do now. Never in recorded history. This is now the fastest we are accumulating information ever, and it's also coming at a cost, of course. We can no longer know everything. In the Renaissance, some 400 or 500 years ago, Da Vinci could know everything there was to know in the world. He could, because you're a very smart guy and all that. You could, and even a couple hundred years ago, Newton and so forth, right? Anyway, but these days, impossible. Not going to happen. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how much you can remember. You will never be able to know everything. So, yeah. So we are at a very crucial time, and this is only going to speed up, because our technology is going to allow us to do things faster. Do you remember when we talked about the genome, Dave, like 20, 30 years ago, and how long it would take to, decode the genome and do this and that? Mm-hmm. That was with computer technology 20, 30 years ago. Today, you can send a wave for your genome. You can send away and you have it in a week or so, maybe less, right? Depending on the workload. This is where we're at. Your entire genome decoded, as far as we know. That's astonishing. And our computers are going to get faster and faster. I think that's what the word is. But they also move into the quantum world. And once we develop a real quantum computer, time is no longer of any consideration at all, because time will become completely irrelevant to any computation. If you understand quantum physics, I'm happy to go into some detail here, but the thing is this: you got a quantum computer, time is now your friend. Okay, that's really the crux of it, and nothing will be impossible. There'll be no such thing as an unbreakable code. Completely, anything will be completely breakable. There's not, it's so we have to move things like blockchain and Bitcoin to have some kind of security. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This is a whole different topic. But yeah, Dave, I'm so glad that you had the conversation. And did you tell him anything new? Did you tell him anything that he didn't know or any thought that he hadn't had?
I mentioned a few topics, straight up. Just mentioned a few topics, and then he mentioned the people who in his class who really aren't interested in knowing the truth. And I said, you know what? Say now, let's pretend 97% of people. Let's pretend that they aren't interested. Just believe that straight up. And I said, we have a term for it. Now, the sheeple. I said, it's perfectly okay for them to want to follow others. Yeah. And they're happy living in their world with their fingers in their ears, repeatedly saying, la, 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 I can't hear you. Because they don't want their world to change. Their imagined world around them, they don't want to change. And that's fine. Let them be like that. I said, if you just do this for you and you become aware, then that is the best thing you can do. Become aware of your surroundings, know what's the truth and what isn't the truth. And if you can't tell, research. And I have to say it was amazing. It was a difference. I didn't think I would get that kind of conversation, Mekhi, to be honest. But look, we're getting some reports that our audio is smooth, but is not smooth anymore. I'm going to switch to. I made a reference. I'm going to switch you to my targeting computer. All right. So bear with me. If the station drops, I'll take it back immediately. All right. Just wait a second. And 5, 4, may drop, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
All right. So the traffic should now start to leave via the other connection. So 1 second. Like I said, if it drops, it'll come back straight away. Okay, ready?
I'm here, buddy. Let's go.
All right, 1 second. Sorry, everyone. Had to do it because of last week. We've got a contingency plan. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we've switched across. And it should pick up the call again. All right, I've got the call back again. Thank you, everyone.
Excellent, good work.
Thank you, everyone, for being so patient. And I don't expect to see any more problems. All right. And and those who are happily advising me about the call quality, could you let me know how it goes? All right. So, Mekhi, other than that, it got hot this week. It's still hot, and there's still a huge amount. Oh, is it doing the right thing? I can hear you still.
I think you're breaking up a little, my friend.
Or maybe the wrong app has it.
Okay, I'm furiously typing away. I was in the chat room as Noodles before. Now I'm back as Mekhi, so that's all goodness. Thanks everybody for listening. If we're still on the air.
Oh, Dave, I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly. So let's just hope everyone can repeats the same.
Yeah, look, I'm sure they would tell us. Okay, cool. Now, we do have a lot of stuff to get through, and I mean, there's nothing is sounds good. Chindolo says, which is great. Okay, no problem. Dave won't do that. But there's a lot of stuff to get through. This is show number 249, 940, and 200. That's one shy of 250 shows. 250 shows next week. That's right, just before Christmas. Thank you very much. Great. It sounds fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for the chat room. And the chat room, like I said, is full. So thank you, everybody in the chat room, for listening and being there, and having the lively debates that we are so enamored with and cherish all the way to Christmas. And also all our new listeners, or old listeners for that matter, all our listeners, but especially the new ones. Thank you very much for being on board. Anybody who knows Dave or I personally, that goes for you, of course, as well. And more so because you know us and you know the craziness that will ensue over the next 1.5 hours. So we are going to talk about ancient tech, though. And ancient tech is something that we tried to do last week. It didn't really amount to much, except for a lot of dead air. So apologies. It's important though, because next week hopefully we can do a longer show, which will explain the hypothesis in some detail. Once again, very important because, like we said earlier, there's a crux point coming up. It's very important that we keep our finger on the pulse of things, and we understand perfectly what is going on. Now, perfect understanding, of course, is impossible, Mackie, and you're right in saying that. Thank you very much, Mr. Listener and Mrs. Listener. But we will get our understanding as perfect as we can. Right? We will get a good understanding of the world, and we might be wrong. Not on all things, and not on very many things, but some things. But ancient tech and ancient high-tech civilizations are very, very important to our hypothesis. Okay, and if ancient high-tech civs, have existed in the past, they should have left something behind. That makes sense, right? It's a reasonable ask. Why can't we find an iPad? We might not always recognize the artifacts, though, but something should be there. And what I mean by that is, they might have gone a different way as far as technology is concerned. The oldest surviving civilizations on Earth should have retained some knowledge of the high tech of our forebears, right? So we should find some old tech, plus the oldest surviving civilizations should have retained some knowledge. Now, and those would be India and China for the most part, because they've got the longest recorded history, stretching back some 5,000 years and in some instances longer. Okay, but we will talk about them in detail later, and it probably won't be today and it won't be next week, but it'll be the weeks after that when we talk about China and India in more detail. We also have surviving texts now, not from, like the Sumerian civilization itself no longer exists, right? Clearly some STEM civilizations have come out of it, but the actual civilization itself no longer around. But we have surviving texts, and they are said to be the oldest texts in existence. And we've discussed those in other shows, and many other shows. We've always made reference to them. We've even shared with you the images of the cuneiform texts. You can get there on the university site. They're included in our show notes. You can actually go there and look at the university's own translations of those. You don't trust Zachary Sitchin? That's fine. You don't have to. Go and look at the officially sanctioned translations of the university of the cuneiform texts, and see what you think about that. Okay. Just they are in our show notes and on YouTube and all that. Anyway, okay. And there are some very anomalous textual descriptions. There's some very anomalous things going on there. Very strange. Very, very strange things. And again, make up your own mind. Now, types of technology, I just briefly mentioned earlier, they might not be the same as today's tech. All right. So what do I mean by that? And it's very simple and straightforward. Interrupt me, Dave, when you've got, jump in any time. We today are a steam engine civilization. Steam engine and internal combustion. That's where we are. Even our nuclear power plants are gigantic steam engines. Gigantic steam engines. That's all they are. We haven't moved from where we were 200 years ago into fusion technology. We're not quite there yet. So it's still fission, and fission to heat steam to run turbines to produce electricity to power everything that we need. That's our nuclear power. It's just used to heat water. It's a little prosaic, but there we are. And the internal combustion engine, which is really a modified version of a steam engine, because it's driving a piston. That's how we work. We're driving pistons, and that's what makes things go around. We're moving away from that somewhat, getting to nanotechnology, different things, different materials, smart materials, and all that wonderful stuff. But largely, our civilization is still that steam and internal combustion. So we're digging stuff up, coal, and oil, we pump it up, and that's all good. What if civilization had gone a different way, though? What if they had done it differently? What if they had found different sources of power? Those ley lines everybody talks about, those electromagnetic forces that we really haven't mastered, don't even fully understand. We certainly don't understand gravity. We know what it is, and it hurts us when we fall down, but we don't really know what it is, and we certainly don't know why there's so little of it in comparison to the other forces. Anyway, so that's where we're at. So, but what if some other civilizations had done things differently? We have texts describing other civilizations achieving flight. Vimanas, Indian texts, even in ancient Chinese texts, you're talking about everybody had these sky chariots. Yeah, texts talk about elixirs of immortality, which are individually tailored. Not a like a broad thing that everybody has, but individually tailored elixirs of immortality, things like that, and sound technology. And if you look at some of the feats that our forebears were capable of, it's really quite astonishing. You look at the walls in South America. I'm talking about these gigantic walls using gigantic stones. Now that in itself, okay, good big stones, Mackie, that's wonderful. That's okay, great. You can use pulleys and levers and all kinds of things. No, well, see, the thing is this. Take a step back, guys. These walls I'm talking about right now specifically, right? You've seen them. Everybody has seen them. They are stones that are massive. Tons and tons they weigh, right? But that's not the amazing part. The amazing part is that they're multi-angled. One, I think, has 32 edges. 32 edges. And what's more, they all fit together perfectly without any mortar. You cannot insert a ruler or even a piece of paper into the cracks between the stones. You cannot. So no, okay, so they did it. That it was done, nobody disputes. The question is why? Why would you do that? Why? Just take a little normal block or even a big block and put it on top of another block, but all the blocks are uniform. See, and that's where the thinking is divergent to ours. They did things differently. Now, could we do it? With difficulty. I doubt it, but it would take a lot of planning, and without computers, very hard. Now that we have computers, it would be easier for us to actually design the stones and how they fit together in puzzles, but it has to all be done, pre-cut at the quarry and then delivered on site and put together. We do that.
It would be all CNC machines or computer, computer-driven machines that would be cutting these pieces to the millimeter.
Exactly. That's exactly, and we do this today. I mean, you look at how bridges are built, or or roads even, or overpasses. They come disassembled and they're assembled on site. It's like big puzzle, like Lego almost, right? And then that's how we do. But they're all the same because it's easier. It's easier. So you must ask yourself, why would anybody choose to? They weren't forced to, right? As far as we know, why would anyone choose to make it difficult and have a 32 angled stone, which weighs tons and tons and tons, and then fit it with other stones around it? And these walls, now, they're very sturdy. They've been around for a long time. Okay, now, how long exactly? I don't think anybody is sure, because our dating systems don't really work too well on rocks. Okay, they don't really work too well on rocks. You need organic material to get something more accurate, like carbon dating and all these ones. We've discussed dating and the shortcomings. That's a whole different show cycle. Do yourself a favor, look at it. And this is what I'm proud of, Dave. Our shows aim to educate as well as illuminate. And we do try to give information rather than just blah, right? That's really what we're about. Mm-hmm. But the question is, why would you do that? So that's different thinking already. But so they did it. That means they could do it, and they did do it. So therefore, either they were showing off, right, or that's just how they did it. That's just how they did things, and to them, there was no big thing. Yeah, that's how we do it. And why? Well, because that's how we like it, and we can, because we are so advanced that we don't even think about how difficult it is. For you, it is difficult. For us, no, nothing. We can do it. It's just like chewing gum, smoking a cigarette. Okay. So that's one. Now there's other examples. The Baalbek, the Temple of Jupiter in Baalbek, right? Baalbek is in Lebanon. You've heard about it. We've spoken about it, and we keep dragging it up as an example. Now, the Temple of Jupiter, nobody is disputing, was built by the Romans. Nobody's disputing that. Built by the Romans, got it, understood. However, the platform on which the temple was built upon is very likely a lot older than the Temple of Jupiter. A lot older. And we've done shows on that, and please look at the evidence for yourselves. Now, my point here is, though, there are three blocks in there, and they are in excess of 1,000 tons each. 1,000 tons each. And they have found there's an unfinished one, and recently they found another unfinished one, even bigger. 12 or 1,300 tons, 1,200 tons, 1,200 tons, guys. We have to build special cranes today to lift that. Not only that, it would take an enormous amount of calculation and study of the rock before you could start working on it, because even the slightest imperfection or crack in the rock, and you lift the thing, it all goes to poop, because it would just collapse on its own weight, and you lift it wrong, it breaks, and you have to start from scratch. It's just too much effort to do that. Not only that, it looks like a tools down event, because like I said, there are 2 unfinished ones. 3 were used in the platform, so clearly that was taken there. And you think, oh well, 3 foundational stones, that makes sense, you put them at the bottom, but they didn't put them at the bottom, they put them in the middle. So they're smaller blocks, still, hefty, sizable blocks of stone, I think, for a couple of stories. And then the next story, the 3rd story or so, they put these 3 1,000-ton stone blocks. Again, you have to ask yourself, why? Why would you do that? There are easier ways. There's so many easier ways of addressing this, whatever the problem was. But maybe they had to do it that way. Right? And clearly, because they did it, they could. And maybe it's just not a thing. It's easy. It's like chewing gum, like I said earlier, with the guys in South America. We could do it. We don't even think about it. It's just something that we do.
No, you mean that they ask, what do you mean? Yeah. You can't do it?
Yeah, exactly.
We can do it.
Oh, that's disappointing. So, guys, this is really where I'm going with this. A different mindset and the different set of capabilities. Now, today we would not do it this way. We simply would not do it that way, because it's not economically advantageous. It's not that it's not feasible. It's just too hard and too expensive. Now, maybe they had a different economic concept. Maybe their society wasn't built like ours, right? Maybe it didn't have these economic parameters that we have around everything. We want to make everything a transaction. Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. Every aspect of your life is a transaction, a financial transaction. In Germany and other parts of Europe and elsewhere, you even have to pay to go to the public toilet. A euro or a dollar, whatever, so you pop it in and you can use the public toilet. And everything becomes a financial transaction. Uber, everything in your life, right? So it's a different mindset. Maybe it was different back then, I don't know. The point is, though, that civilization took different paths, different developments. Even today, if you look around the world, you've got different levels of civilization. You've got different levels of achievement and advancement and of technology, right? But also different mindsets. Nobody would argue, I think, that the Chinese, and I'm being very general here, but the Chinese have a different culture, obviously, to the Indians. And Indians have a different culture to, say, Germans. And Germans have a different culture to, say, Somalians, right? For example. My point, though, is that each nation, each ethnicity has its own set of defining standards. Not everybody, but at large. Nobody would argue with that. And now take this further back in time, right? We are, as an overall civilization, we are commercially driven. That's almost across all our little aspects here. It doesn't matter what ethnicity is, what your national status is, doesn't matter. Maybe 10, 15,000 years ago, it wasn't like that. Maybe it wasn't, and maybe life wasn't a transaction. Maybe life was a collection of endeavors to increase knowledge. I don't know, whatever. The point is, we cannot assume that people have always acted and thought the same way, because even today, people don't act and think the same way. Okay? And I contend that in the prehistory, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 years ago, the human experience was much richer, meaning there were more of us from a species point of view. We know Denisovian, Neanderthal, we know Cro-Magnon, we know
Florensis.
Florensis, and plus another one that's been frolicking around the South Pacific. So at least 4 or 5 Homo sapien types that were around. And we could all interbreed. So we're not that different. We are more closely related, obviously, than to chimpanzees or whatever, right? So we could all interbreed. So now, you got that mindset, I hope. You understand where we're going with this. Second, Dave, this is the timeline for the development of high tech. The timeline. We are, as a species, as a species, we're thought to be 200,000 years old. That's what we think. Don't let me get. I'm going to talk about the fossil record in a second. In fact, I'll let Dave talk about the fossil record because I'm getting a sore throat. But the thing is this: 200,000 years. Okay, so as we stand today, looking around, what everything we've accomplished has taken, and I'm being generous here, 10,000 years. We really only have records, really only going back 5,000-6,000 years. But you know what? Let's say 10,000 years, end of the last ice age. 15,000 years, for argument's sake. Make it 15,000 years. Sure, why not? Now, if we have been around for 200,000 years in our present form, right? Not knuckle-dragging troglodytes. No, like we are today. So you took a person from 200,000 years ago and put him into New York, in a suit, shave him, or her. Well, not her maybe, but shave him, put her in a dress, whatever, and with high heels. You will not be able to tell the difference physically. You will not. They might be healthier than we are today, but you will not be able to tell the difference between us today and them then. Right? No difference physically. Okay, so 200,000 years, 15,000 years per civilization. So at least 8 times we could have developed this. Yeah, at least 8, 9. Hey, if it's 10,000 years, could have been 20 times. But let's go with the 15,000 years. So we could have a civilization like this 8 times over, like ours, 8 times over. And you know what? There would be nothing left because we have no idea what happened 20,000 years ago. We have no memory. We found a Göbekli Tepe. No idea who put it there. Not the faintest clue. We don't know. We're mystified. We are completely mystified. There's other things we find all the time, right? These other civilizations, not even that long ago. But Göbekli Tepe is actually going back 12,000 years. But we have no clue. And clearly, these guys weren't fools. They could, put these big stone buildings up and columns and whatnot, So we have no idea what happened 20,000 years ago. And we don't have an idea what happened 40,000 or 60,000 or 80,000 or 100,000 years ago. There are no written records that we're aware of. Do they exist? Probably. Probably they do. Not accessible to you or me, But I would be astonished if there wasn't some kind of record somewhere.
What comes to mind in this same evolution is if we've done it this time, it's quite possible that others have done similar or gone on divergent paths so that they didn't end up with our tech. Maybe they did live perfectly peacefully. Maybe there was no such thing as war or whatever the cataclysm that ended them and brought on our time has been for a different reason. Maybe some made it into space.
Yes, exactly.
In Africa, there are ring stones, and that's rings of stone, hand-placed stones, that if you were to hit the stone, it will ring like it's steel or iron, like a bell that rings. And these, Michael Tellinger, Mekki, at his seminar, he had photographic proof and satellite proof of there being around about 1 million of them.
Yep.
No one knows who put them there or what they were for because they didn't have doorways. Some of the walls on these things were 10 foot tall of stacked stones. These aren't the kind of engineered stones that you would find in the South American or in Egyptian or for Angkor Wat for that matter. These aren't that kind of ground down work stones. These are raw stones. But they have a property, and the property is that they sing when you hit them. They ring, and they're all tonal. And that's what they're actually called. In Africa, they're called ringstones because they can't find any place that these stones exist in nature other than in the ring formations. Isn't that unusual? So whoever put them there had collected them from wherever they come from, and they're the only ones? Because people have been dismantling these things to get these stones because they have these properties, So we don't know a clue about them. But the oldest text we have on the planet, the oldest existing text that has never been changed, modified, or altered, the original Sumerian tablets.
Yep.
Okay, so they tell a time when aliens came down and the Anunnaki, and they created humans. Oh, that sounds delicious, whatever that is, Meki. And that's what they talk about. They talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to consider this for a second, yeah? If they're talking about that, why hasn't any of us listened? In India, they talk like all the flood myths. That's a pre-disaster, the Tools Down event Meki and I both believe in. It might not have been that time. It might not have been the 12,000 years ago. It might have been an earlier evolution where the Tools Down event occurred. We're only presuming there was one. Oh, sorry. History is only presuming there one. We're saying that if it's been at least 100,000 years of no change, or even up to 2, and you could have had 8 different civilizations hit our pinnacle right now, or go into space.
Further,
yeah, exactly. Or go into space, be spacefaring. Then it would make sense when you read the Mahabharata, and that they had flying machines which were made of metal, and they had super weapons, the Wunderweapon, Meki.
Wunderwaffen, yes, they did. And in fact, since you went there, this is in fact what the Nazis went looking for. Excuse me. You know those Indiana Jones movies you're so fond of? Maybe not, but essentially, yes, there's of course a lot of fiction within it, but the Nazis truly did go ahead and mount a whole bunch of expeditions into the Himalayas, into the Middle East, into other parts of the world to find these legendary civilizations, Shambhala, Shangri-La, Hyperborea, things like, Atlantis, even down into Antarctica. And then we've spoken about Operation High Jump ad nauseum. You can look at your own research, or do your own research, look at our research, look at the shows. But the point here is that these ancient civilizations were taken seriously enough by some to be looked for. Okay. Now, for the most part, we've ignored them. Arabian Nights, which is what was translated by Richard Burton, the explorer.
Open Sesame.
Yeah, exactly. Open Sesame, voice-activated doors. These days, that's an old head. We wouldn't even have voice-activated doors. We just come and the door opens. So it's motion sensor, right? So voice activation, as a security feature, sure enough. As a security feature, really good, because not only do you need a passphrase, but probably voice modulation as well. So you can pick up who it is, and you have to say the right thing. Mm-hmm. So boom, off you go. So that makes sense. Flying carpets, ho-hum. These days, everything flies. Okay, we're even building these little drones that fly, and little platforms that fly. There's nothing in that magic to us. 100 years ago. Oh, sorry, that's probably 130 years ago now. Heavier than air flight was deemed impossible until the Wright brothers came along. I mean, the Montgolfier brothers had already done a hot air balloon 300 years before that. But the point is, heavier than air flight, impossible. Any train going faster than 80 miles an hour, impossible. Air would get sucked out of it. All these impossibilities
that was
have now been
28
surmounted.
miles an hour.
28 miles
That's
an hour.
all it was, 28.
but the problem here is that we have always had these artificial ceilings and limitations put on everything. And we didn't understand the texts for what they were. We read the Mahabharata and we thought, it's a collection of fairy tales. They were describing weapons which destroyed entire peoples. We'll get to that, by the way. It's part of some of the quotes we have for you. They're describing almost nuclear type warfare, right? They're describing flying machines. Not only that, though, these machines can also go underwater. They can fly, but they can also go underwater. The Chinese ancient legends talk about the flying machines as well. Super powerful weapons. Yes, there's talk about these massive battles that happened in the sky between the gods and the Titans. The Titans being the ancestors of the gods, right? And not just in Greek mythology, Norse mythology has that as well. Those that came before, right? And there's always this conflict, this theme of conflict, but this theme of technology. And with modern eyes, if we look at it, there's no magic. There's technology, right? Like Arthur C. Clarke said it. Any sufficiently advanced technology will seem like magic. Anything that's sufficiently advanced. In fact, today, go out in the street. I dare you. Go out and ask people how a telephone works. No, go ahead. See what they say. See if they can explain to you how your internal combustion engine works. Chances are they can't. Okay, and yet we are happy to live in a world that's run by computers, even though we haven't got the faintest idea what really happens. Well, some of us do, obviously. Otherwise we couldn't build them. But the point is that in ancient times, I'm not saying everybody was like super high tech. Obviously not, but there was certainly an elite of technicians, engineers, whatever they're called back then, right? That built these things, right? That now we look at, then you go, oh yeah, flying machine, that's nothing amazing, that is, It's only amazing because it's 10, 15, 20,000 years old. That's why it's amazing, because we don't allow for those people to have had those skills. We don't allow for those people to have had the knowledge to do what we do today, and maybe even better, because we cannot. We are actively, this is the educational system, you guys. We're being actively encouraged not to think like that. I remember my history classes very well. This was back in grammar school, year 5 and 6. It was at a gradient. It was a gradient. It started somewhere, right? Like, primitively, and then every subsequent year, we got better and better and better and better. And we just, right now we're at the top. We're at the pinnacle. That's right here. And from here, it can only get better. Now, that's of course not true. If we just look at our civilization, any civilization really, look at how many have gone, how many have been destroyed and have gone through cycles. We had the Dark Ages. And Dave has got something very interesting we're going to share with you in a second. We had the Dark Ages, which meant that Europe for after the fall of the Roman Empire, the fall of the Roman Empire, the self-inflicted fall of the Roman Empire, Europe, Western Europe specifically, fell into what is called the Dark Age. Knowledge being preserved in the East, China, Arabia, and in the General East. That's where the knowledge was preserved. And then after the fall of Constantinople in 1476, I think 1476. That's right. I think 1476. That's right. With the Ottoman Turks conquering Constantinople, and all those scholars that had been there in residence and had links with the East, the Arab nations and the Asian and Far Eastern Asian nations, they went into Europe. And that's what happened. That's our Renaissance, when all this knowledge disseminated into Europe with the fall of Constantinople. Okay, that's what happened. The Black Plague didn't really do us any favors either, right? And it is this knowledge explosion in the Renaissance that really stimulated the growth of Europe and propelled it into a superpower, and that conquered then, went on to conquer and subdue the rest of the world. I mean, if the Chinese had been smart back then, maybe they would have colonized Europe, but clearly that wasn't in their mind. And don't go away. Show number 249. We're going to talk about ancient tech, guys. It's going to be awesome. Donate if you can. Come back after.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Jess Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. Since it is listener-funded radio, and you like what you hear, should be an and in there. There isn't. I'm just going to modify my text. There we go. Please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button. It's on the site's wall page. It's on the left if you're in the chat room, and we do recommend that. You can talk to us while we're on air. I mean, Mickey and I are both in the chat room right now, and like Mickey said before, there are tons of people in there. Good on you, everyone, and thanks Thomas Mackey and Thunderbird for giving us some audio advice a bit earlier on, and also my friends in the ether. Thank you. I'm going to tell you that we need to donate. This is listener funded, and your donation does really continue this station on month to month. I've made it simple for myself. I've subscribed to the station's archives. That way I can listen to any show, any host's show at any time I want. I can download as an MP3, it's all good. And it's only $5 a month. I mean, honest, if you're not doing it, I think you need to be. You have to take a good hard look at yourself, son. If you're not doing it, you really need to do it, and that way you're getting something from it. You're not just, if you got a lazy 50, sure, why not, here and there. But I've got a subscription thing going down, and it doesn't matter to me anymore, and I love it because of what I get. But if you're interested in maybe just a one-time payment, maybe you've been listening for the 5 years we've been on, and you've never donated. Make a donation, but ensure, if you can, that you follow the instructions while you're donating, because you can get something in return. Seed pack. Oh, Mackie, that typing is great, isn't it? I'll have to.
Can you hear it?
Oh, completely, every single time. So we'll have to see if we can. You'll have to adhere to the instructions when you're donating, so that you can receive your gift. And if you're inside the US or not inside the US, please make your choices carefully, in case you have customs issues with importation of seeds or something like that. Okay, we can't do that here, but we could do the EMP-proof thumb drive and things like that. So take your time and do subscribe. And I'd like to say hello to all of our new listeners that we have on board. Everyone who has subscribed to our YouTube channel. Apologies for last week's show also, because the audio was so terrible we pretty much abandoned it. We had made several attempts to make it better. I've got a workaround going now. I did try all week, Mackie, all week I tried, and I thought I'd fixed it. I thought I'd nailed it. I've spoken to many people, and one of my friends overseas I've spoken with for at least 16 hours during the week, and we thought we got it. By the last set of 4 hours, it was working flawlessly, and then it went bad. It went bad again during the show today. So look, apologies. I'm on 4G now, and if you were trying to give us a DOS attack, good luck getting my IP address now. It's DHCP, and it's behind a firewall as well. So good luck with that one. Look, we're halfway through show number. I'm going to put the title screen up because the title screen does not match the show number, the actual official show number. We're repeating show 248 because that was last week. This week it is 249, the official show number of the 4th of December. Okay, so just letting you know, if you've got a bit mixed up because of the titles, don't worry about it. We're redoing it. And we're actually talking about today, we're talking about ancient tech. Now, it initially came from show number 5, but you know what? YouTube decided to delete things on us without any warning whatsoever, no recourse, never claimed anything, that they'd done anything at all, but these videos just disappeared. Gone. So now I'm keeping a copy of every single one, and we can always repost if we have to. But what this has done has given us an opportunity to be able to revisit some of these shows, because we have more information and we're certainly more knowledgeable than we were at show number 5. And well, today's show is nothing less. And just before the break, we've been talking about the 100,000 years of, and it's a conservative view, that humans have been humans. There have been a lot of other species of hominids around, but if you just take humans the way we are right now, there's no distinction between us and the last 100,000 years. Except some would argue, Mackie, we're a bit taller, but we're still a bit shorter and a bit taller here and there. Don't worry about it. Now, we're right before the break, we were talking about the tech part of the many times that the civilizations may have come to bear when we may have been into space. We may have been here or there, may not have even bothered. You might have just looked at the stars and gone, isn't that awesome up there, whatever. And, or maybe we were ruled through one of those periods, ruled by spacefaring people, as does the text suggest. They suggest this, the Mahabharata, Shiva, the god. Fantastic weapons. The wonder weapons of today. Our big nuclear weapons, same description, same effects. They were used on people then, and we've been to the not Mackie and I, but scientists have been to the location that was suspected to be the location of the use of those weapons, and found radiation, found radioactive sands, sand turned to glass, as it would do and has done in our testing in this time around. Also found people laying in situ where they were when they died, but now it's been covered over But that layer was radioactive. The stories of the soldiers walking down to the river and washing their hands and their fingernails and hair coming out. That reeks, doesn't it, of radiation poisoning. The brightness, the description of the weapon, the brightness of 1,000 suns. That says the same thing. So it's no doubt in our minds, and we hope that you come to the same conclusion, that we're talking about a time when there were these weapons, when these weapons did exist, in a different civilization. And this was pre-flood, pre-disaster, pre-catastrophism. At one of them, we don't know which one, because there's been many. About 12,500 years ago, there was one. And they call it the end of the Ice Age. That's what they call it. But it was a lot more than that, apparently. So there was a Tools Down event. This event seems to have been around about 12,500 years ago. We know mammoths existed in in the Arctic regions with buttercups in their mouth. It's one of Mecky's greatest quotes. I love that one. We know that there was grasses growing at the top of a fertile Andes ranges. In the Andes, where it's a desert now, such a high altitude. We know Lake Titicaca actually had, that's up in Bolivia, where, what's the town? Pumapunku, isn't it, Mackie, at one end? Yeah, I think he's muted. He's just plugging, unplugging. I can see his video. I'm plugging, unplugging his video. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. So
He's speaking, but I wasn't sure if you heard.
No. So Pumapunku is at the end of Lake Titicaca. There's also another city buried in beneath. Oh, I like the muting though when you were typing. So what do I like? Mackie talking or typing? So there's a city that was submerged under the lake. It's the highest saltwater lake, and in fact, it contains creatures that are only found on the coastline. On the coast.
Yeah, so
it's nearest coast.
Yeah, we actually think that this was a salt wall, like an ocean port at some point. Now it's lifted several thousand meters into the air. And I don't know if you've seen the actual site. If you haven't, do yourself a favor and have a look at it. It is the most secluded thing you can possibly imagine to go to ever. It is so high that a woman that was born on or near sea level cannot give birth. Yeah, so that's how high it is. So why? Yeah, the question that we asked earlier is, Dave, why? I mean, okay, you can do it, so there you are, that's good. But then the question must become why? Why build there? Why build like that? What happened? And maybe it wasn't built there. Maybe it just lifted itself up, or it was uplifted by some cataclysmic, catastrophe. Same with Pumapunku. Pumapunku, arguably, is one of the most exciting sites. The sheer, accuracy of the blocks and using metal clamps to hold them together. Maybe even having them poured in situ, right? Having the hot metal poured into the clamp depressions to hold the rocks together in situ. Now it looks like they were picked up and thrown about by a giant. That's like one of the poetic descriptions that I read somewhere describing Pumapunku. It looks like a giant had whirled about the blocks and deposited them where they are. It is now a complete ruin. And solidly built again. It's being pieced together.
It's being pieced together by people attempting to discover the wonder of the building. It has a not a tongue and groove system, but a what's it called? Dovetailed. It has dovetailed joints and angled such that these lightweight, or comparatively lightweight, H blocks that are made in the form of an H, which, if you were to slide in a flat panel in the beginning at the front of the building, on the facade of it, after you've constructed the main wall, you'd be able to slide in a decorative piece in front of it to, cover up the gaps that were revealed by the H shape. extraordinary. Like we don't do it. No one's done it, and it was the only place we could find it having been done. You have to think about how it drills, Mekhi, and not just that looks like it's been routed, but it looks like they've had the ability to drill meters through granite and other diorite and other stones, pretty tough stones. Yeah, sandstone's not so tough, but they've been able to drill straight through it. So, what kind of mechanism do they have that we've only invented? Do you know what I'm saying? So, in the last, I don't know when drill was made. Maybe I should research that. But the drill wasn't thought to have been made back when these buildings were made, but clearly there's evidence to show that they had it because they've drilled it. Some other extraordinary evidence with some of their giant ancient stonework blocks, which are so large that you can't contemplate moving them around, appear, in fact, that they were putty and sort of squished together because their joints are so perfect. That's a thought process. We don't know how they moved it. We can only presume, and the jury's out still on how they move these large blocks around. Machu Picchu, another place. Mekhi, what was the fascination? I'm going to ask this. The fascination with building such a secluded fortress.
That's the thing, right?
If you built the fortress by the ocean, they still, would have been easier.
That's right. It's odd. I mean, look, it goes hand in hand with Göbekli Tepe, which was deliberately buried in the sand. Other sites as well, which were consumed by the jungle, consumed by the sea, but some, like Machu Picchu, like Göbekli Tepe, deliberately hidden away. They're underground complexes as well in Turkey, massive ones, massive underground structures, right? For in fact, entire cities underground. So we have no idea. And this is really the problem, guys. We don't know. And we pretend we do. And everybody says, listen to the experts and they know what they're doing. They do not know what they're doing. They do not know what they're doing.
They're fumbling about in the dark without any real clue. But their problem, Mekhi, you're going to agree with this, right? Their problem is that whatever they come up with has to suit the current narrative. What do you think of that phrase, Mekhi?
That's exactly right. And that's 100% correct. In fact, we people say, that's such a terrible statement to make. Science is there to progress mankind. Ideally, yes, I completely agree. However, we're living in a dogmatic society. I want to give you a simple example that's completely removed from what we're discussing here. I want to give you a simple example. I'm not a religious man. Doesn't matter. But people are, and that's okay. That's cool. People are religious. They have faith, and that's all good. They believe in a creator, a God or whatever. That's fine. That requires faith. Yeah, agreed? Good. And there comes dogma with religion, and that's understood and accepted, because, you can't prove it. You cannot prove it, so you need something to hang your head on. So you make up a whole bunch of stuff, or you say God said it, which is also okay. That's cool. However, if you're an atheist, you believe in the absence of a creator. That's what you believe in, because you can't prove it. You cannot prove the absence of the creator. You can't prove the non-existence of God. You can't. So it becomes dogma. Now, if you listen to a debate of Richard Dawkins with any given bishop or whoever, I don't care, whatever, right? You will find that they have the same style of argument and they have the same arguments almost, right? and it requires as much faith to be an atheist as it does to be a religious person, a person with faith, someone that believes in God or gods or whatever. So this is where dogma settles in. And once dogma settles in, everything new becomes dangerous, becomes the enemy. Because you've got your ideas. Here they are. This is my box of ideas. Thank you very much. And I built my career on it. And my worldview depends on this box of being correct. A true scientist, a true seeker for the truth, a true person, a Wissenschaftler. In German, a scientist is called a Wissenschaftler. And Wissenschaft means knowledge. So someone that's called a Wissenschaftler is someone that is a knowledger, if you will, right? Someone that increases knowledge, works with knowledge, but it's all around knowledge. It's all about knowledge. That's what it is. Not about knowing necessarily, but increasing knowledge and getting to know, Yeah, not having everything set down in stone. Wissenschaftler is also an active noun, if you will, right, in German. So Wissenschaftler, it's not Wissenschaft. It's not a thing that's finished. No, you're still increasing the knowledge. It's beautiful. In English, it's scientist. Okay, that's okay. Science is important. A scientist, will science all day long. But science is not an end to itself, and science needs to lead somewhere. Science needs to bring us something that's good in a way. Like it has to be an absolute good, ideally, eventually. At some point. We have come to a point, though, when we've moved into certain scientific areas, and the physical sciences are not like that. So chemistry is not like that, biology is not like that, physics, quantum physics, they're not like that, even pure math is not like that. But if you go into sciences like religion, no, sorry, that's not a science. Sorry, in sciences like history, archaeology, things like that, right? you start becoming aware of dogma, and this dogma exists to protect the people that have talked about it. Actually, there's an example like that in biology, which is evolutionary science, right? Which is the theory of evolution, Darwinism, if you will. And we've talked about that at length as well. I believe in punctuated equilibrium myself, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that you are so fixated on your worldview to the exclusion of everything else that you cannot conceive of anything else. And that is necessary for your ideas to survive. In order for Darwinism to survive, the attacks it experienced, especially from the religious order, it had to become dogmatic, because they were dogmatic. So it had to become dogmatic. No, this is the truth. That's the truth here right now. And it is very difficult to move from that position. In history, same thing. Archaeology, same thing. I watched the debate between Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass and Robert Schoch, the geologist. And the Sphinx is, you see the Sphinx is this water weathering, you're saying it's 15,000 years old. That's interesting, but it doesn't matter. Okay, now you should really watch it. Why? Well, because I've got no corroborating textual evidence. I've got no shards. Where's the civilization you speak of that built the Sphinx 15,000 years ago? End of story. Closed book. Thank you very much. Ignoring the physical evidence completely because of dogma. Because of dogma. We have no evidence of who built the Sphinx. We have evidence of who dug it up. Right? We might even have some evidence as to who reshaped the head, but we have no idea who built it. None. Zero. Nada. And this is really the problem here, guys. A lot of things are being attributed to certain rulers, dynasties, kings, queens. Doesn't really matter. But once that's done, that's it. Case closed. Thank you very much. We've dealt with this. Let's deal with the next one. And you probably get a prize for that, and more tenure and more funding, and beautiful. Good for you. So this is where we're living. This is the state of science. Not every scientific endeavor is like this, of course, but certain important ones are. We spoke about the lady Elizabeth McIntyre Steen, I think, who was a very successful archaeologist. In fact, who came up with a grid system of archaeological sites. That we should be in a grid, and should whatever is found in this grid, we should catalog and whatever. She's now still, if she's alive, I don't know, selling flowers. She's a florist because she found something that wasn't simply accepted by the rest of her peers. Oh no, your findings must be wrong. They have since been proven correct a number of times. Look it up yourself. She has been proven correct. Her findings are correct. No apologies, no reinstatement. She's completely disappeared. There's this beautiful fossil bed in the river. It's stone, right? And there's a whole bunch of dinosaur footprints and other animals as well, and human footprints or human-like footprints in that, and all apparently made at the same time when it was mud. So they're all sort of stepping into each other's footprints. Now nobody mentions the human-like footprints very much. So that's sort of silence is deadly in this case. But the one thing that science had to say about the other animals, and none of them are meant to be contemporaries, right? This is the problem here. The other animals that are making these footprints on top of each other, none of them are meant to be contemporary. You know what the scientists said, like the people that looked at it? Yeah, we seem to have a problem here. Period. End of story, no longer interested, moving along to the next thing I can't answer. So, these things which are flying, the physical evidence I'm talking about now, guys, right? Which are flying in the face of everything we think we know, are what upsets me the most. We are not willing, right, to address those. Let's address it. Why can't we say, hey, I don't know? Or, you know what? I don't know if dinosaurs were contemporaries with human beings. You say that, and in any scientific forum, or even
Good luck with that.
Go in the street and say that, they will declare you either to be insane, which is, okay, or a creationist, which is slightly worse than being insane to scientists, right? Or they will completely ignore you. If you're lucky, you'll be ignored. But see, you can't say certain things, even if there's physical evidence or seemingly physical evidence. Okay, let's discredit the physical evidence then. Let's prove it wrong. I'm okay with that. I really am. I really am okay with that. And talking about evidence, the fossil record and the the age of humanity, and we spoke about this last week, but it didn't come through at all. And I need to make this point. It's very, very important.
Okay,
Jump in, Dave. At any point you want to help out with it.
All I wanted to do was say something. I wanted to give you two more examples. So, citing the examples from South America where there's a stone carving with humans, and it's a stone carving by a human of a dinosaur. Angkor Wat, on the relief, on the stone relief, under the eaves of the main building in Angkor Wat, in next to Thailand. What is it called again? Oh.
Cambodia.
Yeah, Cambodia. That's the country I love so much. There is a relief with a dinosaur on it.
Yep,
You have to ask yourself the truth. How did they know about dinosaurs and the shape of them? I think it was the one with the armor plates down the spine.
A Stegosaurus.
A Stegosaurus. The one that's pictured in there looks like a Stegosaurus. Now, a friend of mine went there, and but the pictures are all over the net. It's the same picture he showed me was the one. Now, they weren't modified. They're the original reliefs. So it's proof, nonetheless, that we were peers at one point. Maybe there was still pockets of them alive through all of the disasters, like we became, our ancestors, or possibly ancestors, survived these same cataclysms. So, Meki, back to your point again.
So, so let's argue for a second here in favor of evolution. just bear with me. And I don't care if you believe it or not. Just for to make a point. In evolutionary theory, an organism evolves if there are pressures on it. Okay, pressures, outside pressures, internal pressures, doesn't really matter, but a pressure is applied to the organism and it changes. And in evolutionary, in the pristine original evolutionary theory, the changes are blind. So there's mutations that work, mutations that don't work, and the ones that work, those are successful, and then those are the ones that have the chance to produce offspring. that's how it works essentially, right? But always two pressures, So it could be change in temperature, a change in climate. It could be meteorites falling on you, or food sources are changing, whatever. Or it could be more acid in the air. It doesn't really matter what it is. There's always a pressure. Okay, fair enough. Now, I don't really believe that. I believe in punctuated equilibrium, meaning I believe in leaps and bounds. If we are talking about evolution, I think it's leaps and bounds, and I think a whole bunch of the stuff is already in our genes, and we just switch it on. Now, think about that for a second. If it's already there, who put it there? Whatever. Let's not go there. It gets way too complicated. But let's bear with me here. So, and then you look at a shark, and you look at a crocodile, for argument's sake. And a shark and a crocodile have been around for hundreds of millions of years. There was a megalodon, I think it was called, or megalodon, which is a mega shark. It's huge, monstrous shark, bigger than a whale. Megalodon, thank you, sir. You could have eaten a whale for breakfast and be hungry for more. They were, seriously, massive, massive sharks. But it was a shark. And today's sharks are still sharks. And they look like sharks. And it looks exactly the same as a shark should look. Crocodile, same thing. Used to be really big crocodiles, and now they're a bit smaller. Well, having said that, if you run into a crocodile, especially saltwater up the top end in Australia, it doesn't seem that small. But they used to be bigger. Point being, they're still crocodiles. Bigger, smaller, I don't care, right? So the fossil record tells us that we used to have bigger sharks, and now we've got smaller sharks. We used to have bigger crocodiles, now we've got smaller crocodiles. But the crocodile didn't turn into a butterfly or a cactus or mollusk. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So there's still a crocodile. And why? Because clearly the actual organisms, say if its size, is perfectly adapted for whatever it needs to do. A shark, I mean, can you make it better? I don't know, give it maybe a laser beam or something, right? I don't know. But a shark is pretty optimal. A crocodile, if you look at it and see what it does and how it does it, I mean, could you really improve it? I don't know, give it X-ray vision, I don't know, whatever. But, so they seem to be optimally evolved, if you want to make that argument. Why then do we have such a hard time to apply the same to us, Homo sapiens sapiens? Again, I'm not making the point that this specific Homo sapiens sapiens incarnation is the original Homo sapiens sapiens, or even original inhabitant of this planet. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, though, is once you've achieved a certain form, physical form, it is, and that serves you well, right? That can adapt to change and pressures as it is. Why change? You wouldn't. It just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't evolve further unless there was a need, right? And no evolutionary biologist ever says that happens. Only if there's a change. So if we have a steady state theory where nothing ever changes, then nothing should ever evolve to anything, because you're not answering any pressures. Why would you? There's no point.
Good question.
Right. So we say that all these finds that were made and were put into a book by a Cremo and I've got it here behind me. I don't want. I always forget the other gentleman's name. It's my bad. But Michael Cremo and his collaborator, and I will make amends as soon as I find the book. Essentially found a whole bunch of evidence, textual evidence, and some physical, of really strange finds, really strange ancient finds, and in fact more than ancient, tens or even hundreds of million years old, things that shouldn't exist where they were found, be they human footprints, even fossils, if you will, like a human finger, or artifacts like a vase or gold chain or anything like that, right? And I'm not even arguing the hammer here. No, I mean, the hammer is contentious, and I get it, and I won't bring it up here, but that's fine. But there are others. It's not just the hammer. There are other things that don't make sense, like the footprints I just mentioned to you guys in the riverbed that has now become fossilized, right? So we have a really hard time to comprehend how we could be so old, and I don't understand why that is. I don't get it. Is it because we are so afraid? And clearly we're being steered away from thinking like this. So there's an active, and that's part of the theory or hypothesis theory as well. We're being actively steered away from thinking like Dave and I are thinking right now. But for the most part, it shouldn't be such a leap of faith to say, human beings in their present form have been around for a very long time indeed. And just because we can't find them in the fossil record, even though we have found some evidence, doesn't mean it is so, or it isn't so. And I'll tell you why. My most favorite animal in the whole wide universe is the coelacanth.
Oh, I was going to guess.
I know, I'm sorry. Right? And I know I bring it up all the time and it gets old, but it's my favorite animal in the universe. And I'll tell you why. The coelacanth was a contemporary of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. And according to science, that was the last time we see it in the fossil record, 65 million years ago. So actually, it's beautiful. It's a fully preserved coelacanth. Like, it's big, right? It's like probably, I don't know, meter and a half. What's that? 4 or 5 feet long, right? It's a big thing. It's a big fish, big bony fish, primitive fish. So you're thinking, well, okay, well, so 65 million years ago, and then nothing. We haven't found anything, and 98% of all fossils are marine fossils as well. So there would be a good chance that we would have another one if there were one. But clearly, whatever killed the dinosaurs, and the jury, as far as I'm concerned, is out on that as well, whatever killed the dinosaurs also killed the coelacanth. QED, point proven, move on. Oh, hold on there, Mr. Scientister. Mr. Scientister. The coelacanth is alive and well and swimming around in the Indian Ocean, it is. And it is. Today. And the locals, they catch it. And, well, they don't really like to eat it very much, but, there it is. It's the same exact fish. It's not a different fish or a different species of fish or fish that, evolved from something else into that fish. It's the same fish. So the same fish hasn't changed in 65 million years. In and of itself, not so amazing, because sharks and crocodiles haven't really changed either, right? or butterflies for that matter, or bugs, or anything, really. But the amazing thing is that there was nothing in the fossil record for 65 million years. And we have to understand, we had many shows around this as well, with fossils and such, and it's a very difficult process, a very unlikely process for a fossil to form. That's why 98% are marine fossils, because the marine sedimentation in the ocean especially lends itself to fossilization. Anything on land, not so much, because it usually sinks to the bottom of the ocean and it goes into the mud and it's covered over. And then, then the fossilization can begin because it's kept away from the air, it's kept away from microbes and predators that scatter the bones, and it's preserved beautifully at the bottom of the ocean in the sediment. On land, like I said, not so likely. So there it is, nothing. And I'm saying it's the same for us. We do find these strange things, which are hundreds, in extreme cases, hundreds of millions of years old, in extreme cases, which we tend to ignore because it can't be so. It cannot be so. But why can it not? Because the Leakeys said it cannot be so. Because the Leakeys said 6 million years ago, or whatever the number is now, we came out of Africa, and now we also came out of Asia at the same time, maybe out of Australia, who knows? Okay, I'm not disputing that these hominids came out of Africa and Asia and Australia. What I am saying is they were contemporaries with us, like today. Mm-hmm. We are contemporaries with orangutans and gorillas and chimpanzees and bonobos. We are. They are contemporaries. Just like back then, it was the Homo africanensis, for example, or Homo habilis that were our contemporaries. Why not? Why not? Oh, because, clearly, because we have in our head this dogma of evolution. We cannot conceive of something that didn't come from something else, right? So, clearly, we came from that, and this is the missing link somewhere, but clearly we can see. And then we make up these trees. With the best intention, and a lot of smarts is being applied to it. And see, there's a slight change in the finger bone here, and the tooth here is slightly different to that tooth, and the shape of the skull is different to that shape, and that means this came later or this came earlier, or whatever the case may be. But we now have established a tree of evolution, as far as we are concerned, like our ancestors, right? And we cannot move from it. We cannot move from it because too many people now have a vested interest of that being correct. Okay? This must be correct. But maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't. And people will say, Mackie, you're giving some really strange examples. Like these are like 1 in a million shots. Well, yeah, but they exist. The coelacanth is there. You can't argue it. The crocodile and the shark are there. You can't argue those either. Okay? So these are the things that are really, really bugging me, Dave.
I know.
Because there's no open mind.
No, that's right. And I just want to let everyone know that the coelacanth was discovered alive and well in 1938.
That's right.
1938 off South Africa. And it was unexpectedly found, and it was supposed to be long extinct, like Mekki says, that it's considered today as a living fossil. That term, Lazarus taxon. Lazarus, it's got Lazarus in the name of it. Yeah. It was such a surprise. Look, it's just because in European nations, it wasn't swimming around the ocean. We hadn't caught any of them because that's not where it lived. Mm-hmm. So it's the blinkers that people have on, and this is tying into what you're saying, Mekki. The blinkers that people have on deny them the ability to admit it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. This fish isn't small. I mean, the coelacanth is 6 foot long.
No, it's a big fish. It's a big red herring.
That's true, exactly. And I have to quote from the website. This is listverse.com, and it says, although rarely captured and consumed due to their horrible taste, coelacanths are critically endangered nowadays. So we might actually, despite us thinking it was already extinct, may see it become extinct in our lifetime. That's something interesting to think of.
Yeah, and I don't think we will. And I tell you, I think a whole bunch of other animals are not extinct either. They're just very good at not being found by us anymore.
Yep. So Mekki, and I want to support the other thing you were talking about fossilization is a specialized process, like Mekki said. if it wasn't a specialized process that happened all the time, the forests would be filled knee deep in bones. You wouldn't be able to walk around without crunching on old bones. You wouldn't be able to go into them. But they're not, and they can't be, because the bacteria breaks everything down. The only way to do it is, like Mickey said, is to avoid it of oxygen. If it's captured in a cataclysm. See, fossils are usually created because of some catastrophe, where a low oxygenated, thick, heavy mud sloshes over the carcass, and predators can't get at it. No ants, and no wild predators can get at it. No hyenas, depending on the country. And so it sits there in its own little, clay coffin, and slowly the minerals of its body are replaced by the minerals from rock. Yeah? And that's how a fossil remains intact. Unfortunately, we don't come across them very often, and that's the reason for it. They're not created very often. Tsunamis, big one. That's a big one. You get heaps. The tar pits, La Brea tar pits in California, which I visited, that'll get heaps. There's not much oxygen in that, and they can just keep scooping up more and more bones of stuff out of those tar pits.
That's right.
So it's only those environments that do it, and unfortunately there weren't many. There's been lots, but there weren't many where we've been able to find them. You have to think about large animals too. Large animals. Elephants go to their own graveyard. They go to a graveyard. They go and die in a graveyard. Go to their own one. Yeah? We bury our dead 6 foot down. Don't know why. We burn the rest of them or dump them at sea. Some point in the future they'll find all these people lined up perfectly. Underground, lined up. The wood will have disappeared, only the bones will have remained, maybe some items, some artifacts. And they go, what an extraordinary thing. Then they must have all laid down at the same time. Right? Because they'll only be a century or two apart, right? So they'll have all laid down side by side, equidistant from each other. Extraordinary, must have been a mass death or something.
Yeah, clearly.
Because in a million years' time, that 200 years is going to seem like the same second that they did it. And this is the big problem with fossils. And so all we've got to go on, and we're discovering more and more every day. And China has been the wealth of the newest fossil finds because of how many we're finding. So, look, it goes without saying that the dogma that exists in this process won't allow the injection of a new idea. I was picturing this thing, Mekki, when we're all these new discoveries, because the DNA, the DNA, human genome has been mapped, and they've recently discovered that most people have 5% Neanderthal, or Neanderthal, I should say, and that other species exist and have been detected in our DNA, in the native peoples of this area of the world. And then in Europe, they went, oh, wow, look at that, Neanderthal again. So at some point we've interbred. We have interbred, and the proof is there in the DNA.
They actually gave us gonorrhea, believe it or not. They did. It's true.
Heavy drinking on those fermented berries, and anything's possible.
No, but look,
to prove this, we the cohabitation. So we had also shared caves seasonally. It's thought seasonally. Not at the same time. Maybe we just partied together on the weekends. I don't know. But they said for a certain amount of time, one kind of food was eaten, and the other time of the year, a different food source was eaten. And from what they can determine, the teeth marks and everything on the bones, that the teeth marks only existed for about half the time, 50% of the time, and the other half of the time, the teeth marks didn't exist. So one of our ancestors was gnawing on the bones and preferred that kind of style of eating, and the others didn't. We don't know. We still don't know. And there's been short ones and tall ones, Mekki. You haven't mentioned the short ones.
Exactly.
So we've been a mix of hominids, but yet no one has yet to explain the 48 to 46 chromosome change. that is the biggest change that no one... The only person that of course, that we interviewed, Mekki.
Yes.
And who was that? Lloyd Pye. Lloyd
That's
Pye
right.
was the one that brought that to our attention.
Yep.
Because you don't hear that anywhere else. No one else will tell you, oh, look, and I'll just show you some skulls and go, look, we evolved from that. Really? We did.
And just on the point of Lloyd, so Lloyd Pye was a person that was interested in the Yeti and Bigfoot and Sasquatch phenomenon, right? So he was given or brought a skull, which unfortunately was named the Star Child skull. He was not very happy with the name, but it was stuck with it, or he got stuck with it. And if anybody ever thinks that people do this to gain fame or riches, they should look at the life of Lloyd Pye. Nothing could be further from his mind, I think, than fame or riches. He never got fame or riches. He got ridiculed. He got accusations of fraud. So let's be very clear that if you do go down the path of investigating the impossible, the unusual, the unaccepted, you leave yourself open. Okay, you do. Now, neither Dave nor I are pursuing a career in academia. Good for us. We are what's called amateurs. I want to remind everybody that Schliemann, it doesn't ring a bell, right? Schliemann was an amateur archaeologist who found Troy by following Homer. Yeah, so Homer wrote about it, and Schliemann thought, he's a German, fella. Well, maybe Homer actually told us where Troy is. So he went to Turkey, started digging, and found 6 or 7 cities on top of each other at what he thinks is the location of Troy, and what everybody now accepts the location of Troy was back in the day of Ulysses and so forth. Point is, amateur, following the untrodden path that academia wouldn't go, because clearly Homer's epics are just fantasy. So let's have a moment here for those mavericks of thought that go out there and put everything on the line to find out the truth. Not everybody can succeed. Not everybody does it for the right motives. I accept that, but they're not dogmatic, and their brains haven't been fried away, okay, by what is accepted and acceptable. And it's not even that there's an official body that governs this. Yes, I actually just bought the latest Nexus magazine, Andy. I haven't read it yet. But yeah, I saw there was an article on that, on the digital conscious virtual reality. Sorry, we're just talking to Andy48 in the chat room. So come in the chat room, guys. Come on. If you're on YouTube, come try to listen live. But the point is that it is very difficult to investigate these things. Okay, it is very difficult to do this, and like I said, so there's no official body that governs any of this. I don't think. Maybe there is. This is mostly self-censorship. What is acceptable? What is acceptable? What can I talk about? What can't I talk about? Media has this self-censorship as well. People talk about it all the time. Oh no, this story is too far out. No, you can't. No, you're gonna destroy your reputation. People are being warned, like McIntyre Steen was. Oh, no, you shouldn't say that. This is completely... she was off by 10, 15, 20,000 years. I don't know what the number is now. Oh, no, you can't talk about that. No, that's no good. Just withdraw your findings. I can't. These are my findings. It's the truth. And it was, and it is, and it remains the truth.
That still is the truth, yeah. Mekki, I want to come back to that case for a second, right? Just after mentioning that, just before the break, I sent Mekki an image from the Hans Glasser woodcut from 1566 of the 1561 event over Nuremberg.
Yeah, very interesting.
Okay, so in Nuremberg, this is now kept in a Zurich Central Library. That's how important this is. It's not just a one-off, and it wasn't a photocopy, and it wasn't made up. But this is the news story, real quick, right? At sunrise on the 14th of April, 1561, the citizens of Nuremberg beheld a very frightful spectacle. The sky appeared to fill with cylindrical objects, of which red, black, orange, and blue-white discs and globes emerged, crossed, and tubes resembling cannon barrels also appeared, whereupon the objects promptly began to fight one another. observers could witness a battle taking place. This event depicted an infamous 16th century woodcut as depicted in one. Extraordinary. Is that not extraordinary? We didn't have flight.
Can I give you an interpretation that Carl Jung gave to this?
Go ahead.
Because this is the official line. According to Jason Colavito, the woodcut broadsheet became known in modern culture after being published in Carl Jung's 1958 book Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the skies, blah, blah, blah. Now, Jung expressed the view that the spectacle was likely a natural phenomenon with religious and military interpretations overlaying it. Now, this is a quoting from Jung. If the UFOs were living organisms, one would think of a swarm of insects rising with the sun, not to fight one another, but to mate and celebrate the marriage flight. A military interpretation would view the tubes as cannons and the spheres as cannonballs, emphasizing the black spearhead at the bottom of the scene, and Glasser's own testimony that the globes fought vehemently until exhausted. A religious view would emphasize the crosses. Jung thinks the images of 4 globes coupled by lines suggested crossed marriage quaternities and forms the model for the primitive cross-cousin marriage. It could also be an individuation symbol. The association of sunrise suggests the revelation of the light. You could not write more and say less if you tried. Okay? Like, I'm sorry, but people. I look at but by the way, there are more pictures than just that one. There's another picture here from a different source, which shows just the globes in the sky, right, from 1566 as well. So it is something that happened, and they were fighting. This is the description. Now, this is what it says. This is what it says. In the morning of April 14, 1561, at daybreak, between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun. And then this was seen in Nuremberg and the city, before the gates, and in the country, by many men and women. At first, there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. And in the sun, above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise, there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such blood-red ones and other balls in large number, about 3 in a line and 4 in a square, also some alone. In between these globes, there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear and in the front malleable like the rods of reed grass, which were intermingled. Among them 2 big rods, one on the right, the other to the left, and within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4 and more globes. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the ones standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globes standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all burned, and they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black spear, long and very thick-sighted. The shaft pointed to the east, the point pointed west. Whatever such signs mean, God alone knows. And that goes on and on and on. They talk about things falling to the earth, and in fact, even the woodcut shows something burning on the ground.
That's right, yep.
We're talking about a physical reality here that you cannot simply discuss away, explain away.
Mating insects.
Yeah, that's right.
I've never seen, Mickey, in your whole life, have you ever seen a mating insect swarm fall to the ground and spontaneously catch fire into plumes of smoke?
Every second Thursday of October, yes. No.
That was so cromulent. Perfectly cromulent.
I know, right? Now, guys, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Clearly, something happened. And it wasn't seen by a person, but by the whole city and people in the countryside, outside the gates of the city. Back in those days, the cities were walled, right? Gates and such. It's a fact. Something happened. Again, this goes to my point of there's physical evidence of something. It was obviously important enough to be written down, obviously, traumatic enough to be written down. Don't tell me this is a music, dude.
Okay, I won't tell you.
Oh, man. Don't. Okay, next week, guys, show number 250. Please come around for a jubilee.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to donate. And if you're watching this on YouTube, comments below and come to freedomslips.com to listen to it live and jump in the chat room. Take care, everyone. Bye.